Okay, wonderful. So I'm going to give you all a couple of minutes just to briefly introduce yourself and why you are so passionate about electric cars.
Hi everyone, I'm Rosco from Amazing EV, and we have a dedicated used EV marketplace. You can find a bit more information down the corner there at stand D19. And we're passionate about used EVs in particular, as we see enormous growth in the next wave, and all these fantastic new cars that are coming you see now will be used EVs the day after they're driven out of the showroom. So from there we see a fantastic marketplace for used EVs, and people, as they get cheaper and more affordable, becoming more popular and more popular as a great option for a second, third, fourth, fifth, first car. So we love the fact that there's going to be an enormous market for used EVs, and we're looking forward to being part of that.
Hi all, I am Roland. I run the YouTube channel and social media accounts at Zapped. Why am I passionate about all of this? Well, I am what you would call very big car enthusiast. I'm on the opposite side of the spectrum where cars are everything to me, and I also love tech, so you know, the blend of both naturally meant that I wanted to share my passion for all of this. So yeah, basically I've bought my EV probably almost 2 years now, about 20 months, and yeah, I'm pretty much documenting everything, showing people that even if you've traditionally loved ICE vehicles, that you can also have just as much fun for a lesser price, and of course there's other benefits as well.
Hi, I'm Jamie Lovick. I'm the New South Wales Branch Secretary of the Australian Electric Vehicle Association. The Electric Vehicle Association is basically a volunteer-run organisation that promotes the concept of electric vehicles. We have a wide variety of members. We've actually been around since the 1973, so 51 years now. Initially started by a bunch of engineers during the oil crisis who realised that, oh, hang on, I can't go buy petrol, but I can put an electric motor in this thing and drive wherever I want. Admittedly, only about 35 k's for those really early ones, but you know, it was just a bunch of people sort of taking that next step, mostly engineers, showing that this isn't hard. We've sort of helped members and those interested people over the years get into electric vehicles, demystifying, say, converting an old car to electric. But now with EVs being normal, we're basically here to promote the concept, demystify, show that owning an EV is not difficult. Just make it easy for people. And we do a lot of public outreach, working with councils and expos like today, to just discuss our experience and just show you how easy it is.
Fantastic, and hopefully that's what we're going to discuss today, how easy it is to get your first EV. So I want to ask, if you could debunk one myth about electric vehicles that people are being held back by, that stops them from buying an electric car, what would that be? What's that big thing you think is holding people back?
I think it's still batteries and battery technology. I think some of the myths about how long batteries are going to last are still a major barrier to a lot of people getting involved. So all of us have owned EVs for a long time now, or as long as possible, and none of us probably have any problems either finding charging stations or worrying about battery longevity. If anything, the battery technology is getting better and better. But the batteries that are going into EVs at the moment are well proven overseas. The history of Tesla in particular to have lasted 7, 8, 9 years now. So we think, from our perspective, that battery life is the least of your worries.
Roland, what big myths do you want to put down?
The number one myth that I think I hear a lot, or number one question, is probably all about charging and how long it actually takes to charge. And I think the one thing that people need to remember is, in Australia we have a lot of people that, I guess, they do have the opportunity to also charge at home. And I think the main thing is they always try to give a direct comparison in terms of filling up versus charging at home. But I think there's a clear difference that people need to understand, where if you're filling up petrol, you're going out of your way or you're going past, but you need to physically get out of the car, plug it in, or put in the petrol bowser, wait there for a couple of minutes, however long it is, potentially wait for a line and so forth, deal with all the fumes and all of that. Whereas if you're talking about charging an electric car, whether it's at home or somewhere else, you really just continue to do what you need to do. You just need to get to the charge port. So if it's at home, you plug it into your charge port, and you go about to do whatever you need for the rest of the day. So you could, if it's during the day on a weekend, if you need to go do the lawns, plug it in, go do the lawns. When you come back, it's topped up and ready for whatever it is. And you have to remember, you don't necessarily need to always fill up full. You could just do smaller charges here and there, similar to sometimes how people use their mobile phones. You don't always necessarily use your mobile phones down to zero. You might use it till, say, 50%, then put it on the charger for a little bit because you'll be using it for a lot longer later. It's a similar concept to that. So I think the main thing really is don't take it as a direct comparison. And yes, depending on the type of charger you have, it could take, I guess, hours realistically. But then again, you could also look at the flip side argument. If you're going to go to sleep for, say, 8 hours, what use is it, what difference is it for you to charge for 8 hours versus someone saying, oh, you have to wait 8 hours to charge? So I think it kind of nullifies that.
Yeah, I definitely think the analogy comparing it to a mobile phone rather than charging is a much better way, unless you're someone like me that forgets to charge your phone. So, Jamie, what do you think is the biggest myth that you've wanted to debunk?
I think one of the best things to demystify is the concept of the need for range. Everyone talks about, I need, how far does it go? It's like, well, how far do you need to go? Because, every once in a while you hear detractors saying, oh, well, it won't tow a boat across the Nullarbor. I need to do 1,000 Ks. I can't buy an EV until it does 1,000 Ks. It's just like, well, what do you do in a day? It's like, do you travel to work? Okay, what's that? Do you travel 30 Ks, 50 Ks, whatever? You just drive, park, come home, plug it back in at home and charge, you're good. If you're in an apartment or something, you might not be able to charge. You go to the local shopping centre. Pretty much every shopping centre now has chargers. You just go and plug in, go do your weekly shop, come back out, you're ready to go for another few days or a week or, depending on how much you use. Personally, I live in the Blue Mountains and I work in Sydney. I don't use public charging. Like, the need to charge for me is like, I get out of the car, I pop the little flap on the back, I grab the thing off the wall, plug it in, and I go inside. I don't think about it until the next day, where I had to pull it out again. Now, I'm lucky enough that I do have a driveway, I do have an EV charger, and do scheduling, and will just charge off my solar. But, the actual concept of needing range, really you just need enough range to do your daily things. And if you're going on a road trip, well, there's plenty of infrastructure out there now. I think people are used to having like a service station in every corner. Sometimes like putting an EV charger in the middle of nowhere on a highway doesn't work. It's better to have it where there's services. There's plenty of good examples of EV chargers now at existing service stations like Pheasant's Nest, south of Sydney, Ampol have several chargers there. All the services are there. But also a lot of the nearby towns just off the highway also have charging infrastructure. So really it's just a matter of going, what works for you, understanding that the infrastructure is already there. You might not see it on every corner, but it is there.
I think it's really interesting about range as well, because I don't know about you, but I couldn't drive 1,000 kilometres without stopping. I think that's what people forget, is that your range probably only needs to be about as far as you can comfortably drive without needing a comfort break.
But getting hungry as well.
Yeah, any kind of comfort that you need, a coffee, whatever it is. So actually, there's not many people that are going to be getting up to that kind of distance without having to stop. Even, professional drivers by law have to stop. So I think, we need to get away from this fear that the range isn't enough, because your body won't make it as far as your car will, probably.
And the concept of time to charge is almost irrelevant, because you stop when you need to stop. You plug in the car, literally it takes about 90 seconds to charge, because you just do that, and you walk off and get on with whatever else you need to do. Have a convenience break, have lunch, do your shopping, see a movie, whatever it is.
So what considerations do you need to buying an EV need to think about? So I'm going to come to you first, Rosco. So, how do you select the right vehicle for your needs?
I think in terms of the used EV market in particular, John focused on, there's been a smaller range with the particular models, Tesla and Polestar and BYD, available for the last couple of years, but as you can see, there's going to be an enormous range. I think there were probably 3 or 4 models of new EV available 2 or 3 years ago, and now there's over 100. So we're absolutely spoiled for choice for a start. So we're going to move into a situation next year, we're going to have an enormous number of range of models that are available. So looking at what particular one and trying to make a choice out of those, again, it really comes back to personal preference and trying to find something that suits your own style. And it could be driven by price, or it could be driven by the model, but you're going to find something out there that suits exactly what you're doing, and they're only going to come down in price and get a lot cheaper as the next 12 months goes by.
Fantastic. Roland, what do you think?
I think the main one is these days, I think you really need to think about what you guys do on a daily basis and what you really need the car for. And the reason why I say that is because it comes, for me personally, it comes down to storage. Like at the moment we know that the Tesla Model Y is the most popular selling EV in the world. We know there's a lot of competitors that are bringing cars in terms of that space, into that bracket. And I think one of the main things that people sometimes don't think about is what do you actually need to store in the car, because there actually is quite a big difference between cars that are similar in size because of the way that it's designed from ground up. So some cars, for instance, like the Model Y, you've got a fairly big front where you can put additional storage there. Some other cars, then in the boot, there's also a sub-storage, which allows for even more space. So depending on what you're taking, you could potentially lift out that board or that protection for the sub-boot, and you could put something really deep. Then for some other manufacturers, they choose to have other things within that vehicle itself so that you've only got the cable storage space there. So I think it's fairly important to not only look at space, and then the other thing as well is what you need to understand or take into consideration is probably the battery size. And that's really more just down to how frequent you think you need to do road trips and all of that. So I know what Jamie mentioned about, charging time and things like that is irrelevant, but I think if you're going on plenty of road trips and that's predominantly what you're going to do, it'd be nicer to have that bigger battery as well. And then last point is really around towing. If you're going to definitely tow something and you do buy a car that is capable of towing, just know that you probably want to prefer to get a car with a bigger range, because as soon as you start towing, it does impact range more. And before we have any people that try to, talk about, ICE car can tow this much further. Well, realistically, if you've got an ICE car, it's going to have range impacted too when you're towing something. So those are probably the couple of considerations.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting, actually thinking about how different things affect your range. Also, if you're going to fill up the car, how heavy the car is going to be, again, and how that's going to affect the range. It's good to think of. Jamie, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, sort of expanding on what you said about choose the one that has suits you, can it tow. There's plenty of EVs now that can tow, and also quite decent weights as well. Even some of the smaller hatchbacks like the MG4, it's only got a 500 kilo towing limit, but it can tow. Fine if you want to take a trailer full of leaves to the tip or something, cleaning up the yard. Something else I'd consider, and this is sort of really common if you live in the inner city, maybe in an apartment where you might not actually have off-street parking, is the size of the vehicle. You can actually, because EVs they don't necessarily sort of follow the traditional layout of having a motor up front and everything else is a compromise around that. There's actually quite a bit more interior space in smaller cars. So, people talk about boot space in litres, 280 is probably small, 320 is reasonable, going up from there it gets bigger. If you want to go away for the weekend and put some suitcases in the back, work out, okay, if you're putting 4 people in the car, can you put 4 suitcases in the back? But just going back to the size thing, if you can't park off street, you want to sort of make sure that you've got something you can easily fit in the spot that's in your area. Because otherwise you could be doing laps going, okay, now I have to park 3 streets away because I can't find one because I haven't chosen a vehicle that's short enough.
I've definitely been there when I've driven a Tesla Model Y and I've had to try and fit it into a London parking space which were not designed for American cars. And I drove about 5 streets just to find somewhere because I was so scared that it was going to get knocked. So yeah, definitely I think size is one that we really need to think about. And I guess from your experience, what would you say about budgeting for your first EV? Is this different to how you need to budget for a traditional car?
I think now with so many sort of options, with like the ability to do novated leases now for electric vehicles. Now, that only really sort of applies if you're working full-time and you've got the capability to do that. But aside from that kind of option that's made getting into EVs a lot easier, it's pretty much the same as any other vehicle.
Could you just talk about novated leases in case anyone here doesn't know what that is?
Novated leasing, and I'm not an expert in this, but basically with novated leasing, if you're working full-time for an employer, it allows you to take out a lease or a contract on a vehicle and pay for that pre-tax from your employer. So basically you're buying the vehicle tax-free. And typically they run over about 5 years, and depending on the option, there's typically a balloon payment at the end if you wish to keep the vehicle, or you can return the vehicle and take another lease. Some leases also cover charging, some cover charging equipment, so it does pay to shop around and see what options are out there in that novated leasing space.
Yeah, it's definitely one to talk to your employer about if you think it could be something your company could help you with. Again, it's just removing that barrier, that tax-free is a really wonderful thing.
From the second-hand used EV market, there's definitely a sweet spot with used cars between about 25 and 35,000, where it makes it really affordable for someone to buy a used car versus a new car. Whether you're financing it, it might be just in that range where if you can afford to buy something, it might be in that $25,000 to $35,000 range. And we're only now just starting to see used EVs entering that range as well, with probably some Teslas. There's been probably some Nissan Leafs that have been in that spot, but of the newer generations, the Tesla Model 3s, which are probably 2019, 2020, are now coming into that $30,000 range. So they're really starting to enter that sweet spot where used EVs are starting to become really affordable and a lot more attractive as well.
One thing about, another point on used cars, because there has been quite a sort of evolution in electric vehicles probably over the last 6 to 8 years, there are still, if you go something, say, from 2012, only really sort of get one of those vehicles if it suits what you need it to do. Say a 2012 Nissan Leaf, and you probably would have heard Sarah sort of saying, oh, they use Leafs again. There's nothing wrong with a 2012 Nissan Leaf, but they are really low in range. So if having a low range EV works for you, there's plenty of cheap options out there. You can pick up a Leaf now for about 10 grand. Is that cheap in some people's mind? Depends where you're shopping. But pretty much anything from about 2018 or newer, they're down a little bit in the range compared to the new ones. So you're typically in that 200, 250K range. There's stuff there now even under $20,000, like a 2018 ZE1 Nissan Leaf. I've seen those in the market for about 17. A Hyundai Ioniq, which is before we had the Ioniq 5, Hyundai made basically a liftback, and it's quite a good car. And they've been around since about 2019, and again, they're in that $20,000, $23,000, $25,000 range. So the concept of EVs being expensive is going away, because we've got new EVs now in that getting close to about $30,000 range. The base MG4, now I think that offer's finished now, but $31,000 basically drive away for a new electric vehicle. How can you say no? But then sort of looking at the used market, if say you're looking at a Kia Picanto, which is in low $20,000 range, you can go get a used EV that is in that same price range and start saving money on fuel straight away.
I think there's that total cost of ownership. It's when we really talk about with electric cars and how it's not just the purchase price, but actually it's the fact that there's no servicing fees, the fact that your fuel versus your power is going to be significantly different. So I think, that's the piece we really need to maybe widen the discussion to.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that most people forget, that they're typically spending, depending on how much they drive, anything from about $3,500 to $5,000 a year on fuel. On a larger car, even more. With an electric vehicle, if you can charge at home, or if you've already got solar in your house, Or even if you don't have solar, there's now a lot of the retailers have EV charging plans where they'll give you energy overnight from, say, midnight till 6 a.m. for 8 cents a kilowatt hour. That's cheaper than like controlled load. You know, you used to get cheaper controlled load to run a hot water system overnight, and even that's like 19 or 14 or 19 cents depending on the retailer. So, you know, with now you're paying what, average $1.80, sometimes $2 if you've got a vehicle, a petrol vehicle that requires premium fuel, or even diesel is up around $2 a litre. Even expensive electricity at home is 36, 38 cents, something like that. And in the most expensive public charges, I think are in the 80-something cents range. So, you know, it's half the price, even if you're purely charging publicly. It's just so much cheaper to run an EV.
And I think just to put it to perspective, with the 8 cents overnight charging, to charge our Tesla Model Y from almost empty to full on that 8 cents, it costs roughly about $5. So that's for an entire charge for a couple of 100 kilometers. And then on the topic of the EV plans, I'm on a specific plan where during the day between 11 to 2, any usage above the solar production that I've got is actually considered free. So that essentially, so my calculation really to charge the car is just whatever feed-in tariff I've lost, which means it brings down my actual charging cost for a car down to probably about $1 something every single time I need to charge. So it really is cheap.
And I think that's the kind of information we need to hear. Like, we need to hear really clear, basic figures, because I know when people start talking about kilowatt hours, I just fall asleep. You know, I don't have an electrical engineering degree. That's not what I want to know. I want to know how much it's actually going to cost to charge my car. So thank you, Roland, for that.
And on costs, I've got a Model Y like Roland, and I've had it for 2 years now, and I've spent nothing on servicing. Literally nothing. There is some broad Tesla guidelines about getting it checked and having filters replaced, but I've literally done nothing, and there's no problem with it. I've replaced tyres at about 40,000 Ks. So one of the myths and perhaps perceptions that tyres won't last as long is also debunked. They last about 40,000, the same as any other car, and literally spent zero on maintenance on the actual engine transmission per se.
If you want to talk about tyres, we did have a panel earlier. Go talk to the guys at Hankook Tyres. They have an incredible range of EV-specific tyres. They are doing an offer this weekend as well, which I think is buy one, get one free on tyres. Don't quote me on that, but go have a chat with them. I think it's a really interesting area. I'm going to take us on to Roland. As a content creator, what do you think are the most frequently asked questions that you get from kind of first-time EV drivers?
Two things. So one of them I've covered already, which is around charge times. So it's as I said, the summary of that again is you pretty much plug in whenever you need to. So having home charging pretty much demystifies the fact that you need to wait long times. Depending on the type of charger you have as well, you know, that could extend that period. But for the most part, if you're living in a house and you do have access to the charger, you'll learn to kind of blend charging into all of the other activities you need to do. So that's that bit. And then the other one is, surprisingly actually, the other comment is, as soon as I've told some friends I've got an electric car, one of the questions actually is, oh, so you can't take it on road trips. But I think slowly but surely, I think people are starting to get the message that even based on WLTP range, it is possible. And we've definitely got heaps of chargers supporting all around Australia, not actually just the East Coast. You know, there's actually like there's a whole web page, it's logged somewhere on the internet, people doing trips around the entire Australia. And so it definitely takes away the, you can't go on a road trip. You definitely can, and you'll be comfortable doing it.
Multiple people have done it now towing caravans as well.
There you go. So
If you want to go to Brisbane, which is a common question, if you punch in Brisbane into the Tesla Model Y, it gives you 4 stops. It takes 12 hours door to door. It takes you to the next stop, the Tesla supercharger, tells you how long to stop for, tells you how much juice to take on, takes you to the next stop, and it's literally 12 hours door to door. So anyone tells me they can do Brisbane in 9.5 hours, and good luck to you, but I don't think it's legal. So.
I think Tesla is really ahead of the game when it comes to that planning for you. I know in my experience of driving quite a range of electric cars, it's actually not my favourite of the cars I've driven, but I do love the fact that it will tell you, you are running low on charge and this is where to go, and it will just map it all out for you. It's really convenient. There's just user error if I choose to ignore it. I'm going to come to you, Jamie. So, with your advocacy work, what do you see in terms of charging infrastructure and how that impacts people's decision to buy electric cars?
It's mostly a perception issue. We obviously speak to sustainability teams of a lot of councils, encouraging them to seek out. So the New South Wales government, and there's also federal government funding as well, but the New South Wales government has the Drive Electric program, and they're managing a fund to co-fund the installation of chargers that can cover on-street charging in a lot of sort of LGAs, so councils and stuff like that, and also regional charging. So if, for example, you're a tourist operator, you have a winery, you have some kind of attraction out in the regions, the New South Wales government, you can apply to the government for a co-funding grant for the installation of EV charging infrastructure. The sort of just that lack of knowledge that people, as a business operator, that you can do that, as a council, that you can do that, and also sort of seeing the need of people in your own electorate or your customers. I think that lack of knowledge that that's available, that it's already been shown that installing chargers into a building, for example, into a strata, increases the value of the building because you're adding more functionality, you're adding more services. And for businesses, that means that if you've got a business and, whether it be a cafe, whether it be a winery, and as an EV owner sort of driving in your area, they're going to look up on PlugShare or Better Route Planner or, the Tesla navigation to see what chargers are nearby, and they're going to go to the place for a charger. Yeah. So really sort of, I think the challenge is not so much from an end user perspective. It's more sort of getting these businesses and getting councils, because there are councils that go, no, we don't need chargers, nobody in our area wants that. It's just like, well, have you even asked them? So yeah, I think it's just getting the information out there that the infrastructure is there, and also that more can be added very, very easily. We just need people in the different LGAs, councils and businesses to actually engage that. There's funding available, and even if they don't take up the funding, having it there is of benefit.
Definitely. I think that there is progress being made. I think we see it. It's always slower than you want it to be. But our experience in the UK is actually that now there's fantastic charging infrastructure. There's not enough electric cars on the road that need it. So it's sort of starting to falter a little bit. So I think it's a bit chicken and egg. We need the cars and we need the drivers to then drive the need for that infrastructure to get the funding in place.
Yeah, and it's not to say that there isn't already infrastructure out there, especially in the rapid charging area, because I think the New South Wales government charge electric goal is, or drive electric goal is every 100 kilometres on the major highways. For the federal government funding, I think it's every 150 kilometres. But, not everyone wants to breeze past a town. We want to be able to go into a town and park up and, plug in while we're having a lunch or whatever. Also, hotels, motels, caravan parks, cabins, all those places where you've got all the time in the world to charge, because you're there overnight, you're there for a couple of hours, whatever it may be. They're the places we need to target, because the best time to charge is while you're doing something else. So really we need to push for more destination charging.
Definitely, make it as convenient for people as possible, put the chargers where people want to be. Sports stadiums, we've just had the Melbourne Cup, imagine if all those people could be charging their cars while watching the horses. So Roland, I'm going to come to you. So considering how quickly electric vehicle technology is advancing, I think it's Deepal who actually have a car with augmented reality in the windscreen. There's incredible things coming out. So how do you kind of future-proof your decision-making You know, how do you know what to buy, when to buy, and not worry it's going to be outdated in a year or 2 years?
So I think the first thing is, if you're going to buy an EV sometime in the near future, my honest words are just buy it. Don't keep waiting for something new, because the same analogy I'll use with the mobile phone. If you're going to wait for the best mobile phone, you'll literally keep waiting forever, because one mobile phone you buy now is the same as you buy a car now. In 12 months' time, there'll be something new. You know, a lot of the, or a couple of manufacturers here, they've got cars here. The one you were mentioning, I think, is the E07. It's a production car in China today. They brought it here as a concept to test the waters and everything. It's the same thing. So do a lot of research. My high recommendation is join Facebook groups. Everyone loves social media. They love talking about bad things, but there's always a good bunch where people always comment and ask for genuine insights on whatever it is you want to buy. So like, I know XPeng and Zeekr definitely have like Facebook pages or Facebook groups. You'll see plenty of people asking there to go, hey, I'm interested in this model, who's sat in one, or send me photos. You know, I haven't been able to go out to see the vehicle on display at, for example, this show. You know, so what do people think of that? What features are available? You'll get all the feedback you can get on it, and you'll also be able to see if there is anything negative associated to it. So I think research is absolutely key. Not only on the vehicles themselves, I think it's also good to do a bit of research on technology that's coming, or there's always a lot of media articles on cars that are coming next year in 2025 as an example. So sometimes people would like to buy a car because of the shape of the car, sometimes people buy for all other reasons. But if that's something of interest, I'd say have a look at the cars that are coming, but don't just keep waiting forever, because you really will be waiting forever.
Definitely, and I think there's something in electric vehicles that's fantastic, which is over-the-air technology. So if you don't know about this, just as your phone, your electric car can have central updates. So performance is continually improving, even with existing cars. For example, you know, Tesla might come out with a new system that means that the battery is going to operate better. So they can actually push that to your car with that update, which means you're actually going to get better range out of the same battery without doing anything. So I think that these new cars have new opportunities as well, that they can keep improving the same car. What do you think in terms of, you know, buying a used EV and that fear? We've talked about, you know, getting a 2012 Nissan Leaf, and, you know, there's that fear of being out of date.
I'm with Roland and Jamie. If you want to buy an EV, just buy one now. It doesn't matter if it's new or used, as far as I'm concerned. We're all big advocates. You don't have to wear a blue shirt, but it helps. But we're all big advocates for EVs. So we think the biggest technological advances going forward will be that you're going to get more for less in the range that are coming out shortly. That's going to filter down to the used EV market in the next couple of years. But the best thing for used or new EV buyers right now is that you're getting fantastic technology. It's going to be updatable, and it's just getting cheaper from all these models that are coming out right now. So there is no better time to buy one than right now.
Yeah, I'll just also add that as part of the consideration process, you know, get behind a wheel or get in an EV, because you know, if your friend's got one, or if you're coming to an event like this, don't just look. Go for a test drive. You know, this event, NRMA, we do drive days sometimes as well. It's all about sort of getting in, talking to owners, actually experiencing the vehicle yourself, and just sort of realising that it's not that scary. It's just a car. It just happens that you fuel it from home, or even a power point. If you're only driving enough in the day that you're not running the battery all the way down, most people just plug it in at home. That's one of the biggest surprises, I think, of people we talk to, that they can actually just plug into the regular power point they've got in their carport or garage. The only thing we recommend is just make sure that it's a good quality power point, because you know, you probably heard don't plug a fan heater into a power board because you might melt something. EVs are a bit like a very big fan heater. They do draw a lot of current over time, so you want to make sure that the electrical outlet and wiring in your house can support that. But aside from that simple thing, and that could be just getting an electrician to check it out, it's just really easy.
Yeah, I never had my own charge port, so when I've driven electric cars, I've either done street charging, public charging, or Mostly, I had a driveway, so I just plugged it into the wall. It was slow, I warn you, it's not recommended because it will take all night to charge, but it was the solution I had, so it was fantastic. You know, in terms of looking ahead, what innovations, what things coming out do you think are going to be helping make electric cars more appealing? We've obviously talked about charging infrastructure a lot, but what about these cars over the next 5 years do you think is going to really help people think, yeah, yes, this is the car for me? Roland, I'm going to come to you.
I think something that Jamie mentioned earlier, so I think EVs these days, they're not like your traditional layout of your traditional cars. I think we've actually, with the whole EV revolution, I think we've kicked off, it's almost like we've done a reset on the blueprint of what defines a car. Because mainly, you've just got the battery there, you just need to fit one motor or two motors, whatever it is, and then you'll see that there's been so much more space that you can see in a lot of cars. So, you know, you look at cars these days, even your small hatchback compared to an ICE equivalent, say three years ago, even now, you've got so much more usable space. And I think one of the things that you'll see over the next couple of years is you'll see a reset on designs on what a car actually is, and you'll see that there's probably more potential to get people outdoors, whether it's actual camping as an example, where you know you've seen some concepts of cars with seats that can swivel around, so you've essentially got a whole dinner table potentially with sliding doors. I mean, that's just one example, but I think that's where it's headed. The whole blueprint is starting to be redefined. So you won't see the traditional cars. I mean, today for most of these cars, you'll still see 4 doors, you'll see a couple of sliding doors, but I'm sure that some of those will change over the next 3 to 5 years. And with the benefits of EV, how you've got pretty much electricity as you go, I think we're going to start seeing more people go outdoors, whether it's camping or just enjoying life outside, and the car being, I guess, an extra addition to making life easier to enjoy the outdoors.
I love that, it's such a nice dream. Jamie?
Something that's actually just around the corner, which is bi-directional charging. The ability to use your EV as a home battery. It will vary manufacturer to manufacturer, and I dare I say, I think a lot of the Chinese manufacturers are probably going to be early on this, even though the European manufacturers are sort of, a lot of them have the features or tech built in, they just need to switch it on. Cooper might be an example of that. But the ability to power your home and also potentially trade energy, there's energy retailers like AEVA, for example, where if you've got a home battery during the day, when the price goes negative, they will pay you to charge your home battery. You don't even have to use your own solar. Once we get the bi-directional charging tech, which should only be about 12 or 18 months away, as long as the EVs support it, and some manufacturers may do it via a software update, some of them may go, oh no, you're going to buy the next model. They want to make their money too. But you know, the ability to basically be paid to charge your EV, because you're pulling energy off the grid during the day when the prices go negative, and then actually make money off what is sitting there in the evening peak to actually push that back out to the grid. You can do it now with, as I said, a retailer like AEVA, if you've got a decent sized home battery. But the thing is, home batteries, they're quite expensive for what they are. You look at the cost per kilowatt hour of a typical EV battery, home batteries are way more expensive per kilowatt hour. Now, I think some manufacturers that might do EVs and chargers, I'm not looking at you, Tesla, or maybe I am, you know, they'll resist bi-directional charging, I think, initially, because they've already got something in the market for home storage. But yeah, I think storage will be one of the next big things that people will just, it will take a moment to get their head around it. The fact that you can essentially trade energy, you know, is going to be something completely new and interesting, and not everyone will have the access. Obviously, if you own an apartment, that's a bit more different. But potentially, buildings, stratas, can set it up and ask if their you know, residents want to choose to trade energy and sort of perhaps offset their strata fees or something like that. So there's a whole lot of potential there. It's just a matter of for the tech to arrive and then people to work out how to best use it.
Rosco, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, I just see innovation in terms of we're going to get more value for money. There's going to be technological advances. We've seen a lot of them now. We get a glimpse into them in the future. But I think from a buyer's perspective, whether it's again new or used, we're just going to see more value for money. Prices are going to come down, and you're going to get more for the same. You're going to get more for less as the next couple of years, as competition amongst all these magnificent EVs that are coming to market really increases. It's going to benefit all EV buyers. So that's the major innovation I see.
I was just going to add to that, the fact that EVs will be cheaper than petrol and diesel vehicles as well. You know, that doesn't sound like a revolution, but, you know, you look at a typical petrol or diesel engine, it's got like 1,000 parts. An EV motor has a motor, some reduction gears, and a diff. That's it. They're super simple. So as you know, that tech becomes more accessible to different manufacturers, they're going to be the ones sort of leading the way, you know, being up in and keeping vehicles affordable.
Definitely, and I think one thing to mention as well is with that affordability piece, young people getting their first car, we don't realise that over the next few years, those first cars will be electric cars. There will be people who grow up who've never driven an IC car and don't know any different. And I think with these affordable cars, you know, things coming in at something like $15,000, you're hearing for some cars second-hand or first-hand. So I think, you know, with time, with this affordability piece, I think that's going to be a really big turning point. I'd love to open up now if there's any questions from anyone in the audience for our fantastic panel. My colleague will come around the microphone, so just give us a little wave if there's any burning questions you'd like to ask. I'll let you think, we'll come back to you. I guess another one from me, it's a really difficult question to ask you, but what would be your next car? You know, I know you all drive electric cars, but what would be your next car? What would be your dream car that you can have, Rosco?
I'm happy with the one I've got. Yeah, it's a boring answer.
Sell it's crazy.
I've got a Tesla, but we're brand agnostic, so we carry all sorts of used EVs on the marketplace. It just happens to be that Teslas are the majority at the moment, but we're looking forward to the day when we can offer a lot more different models and a lot more different ranges. They've got all the advantages, as Jamie said, from 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, $60,000. If you like a particular brand, stick with that brand. If you like a Mercedes, stick with a Mercedes. If you like a BMW, stick with a BMW. If you want to look at something and adopt, as Australians have with Chery and Haval and a couple of other brands, they've adopted them very quickly because they've been really affordable cars in the petrol market, and that's going to happen the same. So Australians have shown a propensity to adopt new brands into the car market, whether it's EVs or petrol, very quickly, and we see exactly the same thing happening here. So, yeah, look, maybe my dream car is that Tesla Roadster out the front there, which you can have for $350,000. It's one of 22 in the country and less than 3,000 in the world. So yeah, that's my dream car out there.
Or the Cyberster a bit further back, which I think is about 123,000.
I think it's interesting actually, you mentioned there about if you like a certain car brand, you can transition. I know BMW, my dream car's a Mini, and BMW and Mini have worked really hard to actually make it a very similar experience for drivers. So they've not gone too techy, Tesla, they've made that experience similar. So if you like a BMW and that's what you drive, you're just switching to an electric version of a very similar car. So they're trying to make that really easy transition. Jamie, what do you think? What's your favourite?
What I like is probably not quite there yet, which is just small sports cars. Like, think an MX-5, a Suzuki Cappuccino, or a Honda Beat. I've been a car guy for a long time, and I've been a tech person for probably almost as long. But I've always appreciated the Japanese K-cars, which, if you're not familiar with them, if you don't have off-street parking in Japan, you're only allowed to have a particular class of car, which is typically roughly no more than 1.4 meters wide, no more than 3.4 meters long, or 3.3 meters long, and they tend to limit them to 64 brake horsepower, or 47 kilowatts. I actually own a Mitsubishi i-MiEV, which is a K car brought into Australia by Mitsubishi in the early 2010s. They didn't sell particularly well because they were $53,000, I think, when they were selling them for basically what's a city car. But I think now with the tech that's available and how affordable that tech is getting, I'd love to see something really small and fun, like a little hot hatch or a little hot convertible. Closest at the moment is probably the Abarth 500e, but it is about, if you shop around, $50,000 to $60,000 depending, so something cool and fun, but maybe around $30,000 where it's just fun affordability. Affordable fun. Yeah.
That's great. I mean, the one thing we haven't mentioned here about getting your first EV is they are fun to drive. They are fantastic. That first time when you hit the gas coming out of traffic lights and you overtake it's a fantastic feeling that you just can't beat. And it does almost have that sports car feel because there's no resistance, that you don't need the engine to rev up, all those million parts that you mentioned. You don't need that. You just hit and it goes. It's fantastic. Roland, what would you say? What's your dream?
Dream car probably doesn't exist yet. I want to even, well, maybe it does. So Zeke has got it's got the 001 FR there, which apparently goes 0 to 100 in 2.07 seconds. I haven't driven that, but maybe one day. So basically, I just want a car that's fun to drive on the racetrack. I've taken my Model Y on the racetrack before. The seats weren't supportive enough and really did throw me around. So I think if there was something that could support me on the racetrack, or support like a person throwing themselves around the racetrack really well, I think that'll do it.
You've been in a Formula E car yet?
No.
Oh, that'd be the one. Okay.
One day.
We'll sort this out.
I think in the next few years, there's going to be some interesting times ahead for people who like track days, because you don't necessarily think of an EV as something you'll take to a racetrack, but, with using the example of the MG4 X-Power, 0 to 100 in 3.8 seconds, it actually handles pretty good. In a few years, when they're hitting the used market, you can just go, I'll pick up this X-Power for $25,000 and I'm going to go do a track day because it's going to be fun. I mean, you could do it now as well.
I think we've got a electric vehicle track days, definitely. Okay, we'll talk about this later. While we've been chatting, have any questions come up from the audience? I'm really keen to make sure we are answering. Yes, we've got one here. Just got a microphone coming to you.
So let's say the flagship of all electric cars at the moment is a Taycan from Porsche.
So sorry, do you mind repeating?
The Taycan is considered as the flagship, the best money can buy luxury car, etc. Is there anything which is cheaper, which is similar, made by anyone else, which gives approximately the same sort of drive, the luxury and everything?
Right. Anything similar or cheaper to the Porsche Taycan? Yeah. I'll put my hand up. Yeah. Oh, which one are you choosing? I'm going to say the MG4 X-Power. It's the closest. It doesn't look as cool as a Taycan, but you can get them for $45,000 today if you get a 23 model and you find the right dealer. Otherwise, they're still around $50,000 if you don't find the right dealer. It's, as I said, something that does 0 to 100 in 3.8 seconds. It's relatively affordable. It handles fine. Does it look as cool as a Porsche? Yeah. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. The other option is if you like classic Porsches, for example, there are quite a few companies out there doing EV conversions, putting Tesla drive units into like an 80s Porsche. So depending on where your budget is and what you're really interested in, how passionate you are about a particular vehicle, while the Taycan is cool and also the Audi GT, they're cool luxury options, but sometimes you want a bit more than a GT car.
I was going to say, if you've got a budget for a Taycan and you want something similar, the RS e-tron GT is literally the same. From the Volkswagen Group, parts are probably mostly the same. It's the same 0 to 100 in the RS e-tron GT as the Taycan Turbo, 3.3 seconds. So you'll probably, and it sits pretty low to the floor as well. Just make sure you can get in comfortably because it's pretty low and You do sit fairly flat. You sit pretty much almost like a Formula 1 race car like that. Otherwise, other cars you're looking for, 3.3 seconds. The new Tesla Model 3 performance will do 3.1. I think that's subtracting the start of the drag strip, so it works out to be about 3.3. The original Model 3 performance, I'm sure Rosco can hook you up with a Model 3 performance that does 3.3, and there's the Ioniq 5N that'll do 3.4 seconds. There's quite a few that are around 3.3 seconds.
We're forgetting the other new cool-looking car, which is the Cyberster, the MG Cyberster, the convertible that's just over there. When they did the press tour for that in the UK, they also had a coupe version. I really hope they make it because it looks really good. That's probably the other one I'd throw out there. But really, you know, there's so many performance sedans, performance SUVs now, particularly sort of coming in from China. Xiaomi have their, is it SU7?
SU7 Ultra, 6 minutes 46 around the Nürburgring.
Yeah, so really, because there's so much performance with EV motors, you don't really have to sort of think about, oh, it's only the sports cars that go fast. No, pretty much every EV that you pay a reasonable price for now is fast. And depending on how fast you want to go, even the affordable ones are fast.
And dare I say it, you can probably find a Taycan for around about 100,000 very shortly as well on the used market.
There you go. Do we have any other questions from the audience?
There's no such thing as a stupid question. We're happy to answer anything.
Lovely, one here.
Are many people looking for bargains in the second hand? I got an Atto 3 with 6,000 on the clock for 38.5. Is that uncommon to get those sort of bargains?
Come and see me and we'll talk about that later.
Wonderful. Was there any other questions, or did you want to ask anyone else? No. Wonderful. I think that's all we've got time for then. I want to say a huge, huge thank you, Jamie, Roland, Rosco. It's been absolutely fantastic. You clearly are so expert on these cars. If anyone does want to come and ask a question, personally, I know all of you gentlemen are going to be hanging around afterwards. I am as well. So please come speak to us. We're more than happy to answer your questions and help you find your perfect electric car. But yeah, needless to say, thank you so, so much. It's been a pleasure. And let you get on with your day. Thank you.
Thank you so much.